Hello, I'm Michael Diamond, and this is Muscle Central. I'm here once again with Ricky T. Anthony. Ricky, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're going to talk about posing, posing in bodybuilding in general, but I would like to start off with the greatest posers in bodybuilding, if that's all right with you. And
All
then
right,
we'll cut the meat, so to speak.
let's hear it.
Okay. Well, wow. There are a lot of great poses in bodybuilding, especially from the 80s and 90s. For me, one of the best posers was Muhammad Makaway. And if anyone can pull up the video of his 1984 posing routine for the Mr. Olympia, you'll see what I'm talking about. It was classic, it was smooth, his transitions were great. He was he was clearly the best poser in that show on that day. But to add to it, we've had a lot of great posers. After him, the next top guy would be Vince Taylor when he did his Terminator routine.
What about before? Let me ask you a question. What about before the '80s? That there weren't any good poses back then.
Well, if you follow history of the sport, when they started using posing music to their routine and having routines, it started like around 79, 80.
Well,
So before guys would just pose and do transitions, and it was smooth, I'll give them that. But I'm talking about when they added music to posing routines and made posing routines a key part of the sport.
what I was actually getting at was Ed Corney. Uh, Without a doubt, he was an absolutely amazing poser. The way he
Yes.
the way he moved, he had every little detail of his body covered down to his fingertips. Just his movement alone, it was really mesmerizing and captivating.
Yes.
It was just it
Yes.
was
And for you young guys that don't know Ed Cordy, look him up. He was a master
and I don't
poser.
think there was
Yes.
anybody. I mean, Arnold, you know what? Arnold was a good poser. There's no doubt about it. Arnold was a good
Yes.
poser, but I don't think there was anybody, no one that came anywhere near Ed Corney as far as the ability to pose.
And I will totally agree with you with that. And if from that era, the number two greatest poser, I would dare say, was Frank Zane.
Yeah, definitely knew how. He definitely knew how
Because he
to.
was also known as a master poser.
Yeah, you definitely, without a doubt. But then again, as like I said about Schwarzenegger, I think Ed Corney was head and shoulders above everyone else. I
Above,
just,
yes.
I just, I can, I can watch him over and over and over again, and just he's just so captivating in his movement. It's just, it's hard to describe. You have to really see him to appreciate what I'm talking about.
Right, correct. And I totally agree with you, my friend. And that's why the first person I threw out was Muhammad McAway, because that video is all over YouTube. People can see that. But the thing is this, in the 70s, 80s, there were a lot of great posers. Posing is a lost art today where guys just come on and they go rah, 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 and then they walk side to side. They'll shake their ass a little bit and then rah, 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 and make a whole bunch of noise. And there's no art to the posing. So that's why I wanted to go through the greatest posers. So going back to Vince Taylor. Vince Taylor, in the era of great posers, put himself above everybody else when he came up with that Terminator routine. No one had ever done anything like it. No one ever saw anything like it.
Well,
And he set himself apart from everyone
you're
else.
forgetting about the man who taught him.
John Brown.
Yes, yes.
And that's
You
why
have you
those
have to
who
give,
are
you
watching
have to
this,
give credit where
that's
credit's
why I want to
due.
do this topic.
You have to give credit where credit's due.
Yes, and that's why I want to do this topic so those that are watching can learn something. Yes, John Brown was an entertainer. People always argue, is bodybuilding a beauty pageant for muscle guys or is it a sport? It is both, but
Yeah, a
the
little bit of both.
athleticism comes with the posing. Just like when a sprinter has to run 100 meters to show what he is, the posing is what sets the bodybuilder aside.
Yeah,
So
well,
posing is very important.
it's
And
not
like
as
you said, John Brown, wow,
it's
hats
not
off
as
to you for
easy.
that. Salute
It's
to
not
you
as
for that.
easy as one might think. You know, we both competed before. First off,
Yes,
when we step on stage, as good as we look, the truth is we're not in the greatest of health. Where our body is worn down, we're dehydrated, and
yes,
when you get off that, I get off that stage after doing my minute and a half, only a minute and a half of a posing routine. You got to remember when you're hitting a pose. Say you're hitting a front double bicep pose. Every part of your body has to be tensed when you're doing it. You get off the stage after that minute and a half. Now we're talking about amateurs. We get a minute to a minute and a half to do it. It's
yes.
pretty exhausting. I can imagine at the pro level, the big shows when they're allowed to go 3-4 minutes doing routine. It's not as easy as one might think.
Agreed. Agreed. And this is where I tell these young cats, when you're talking about posing, okay, go back to the 82 Olympia. Chris Dickerson, his posing routine with Trumpets Volunteer. Go back to the 83 Mr. Olympia, Samir Banu, watch his posing routine. But again, posing was like a thing that you looked at with a microscope back then. Everybody had to pose. And of course, they scored posing back then. So now you get to John Brown. Another student of John Brown was Sean Ray, another great poser.
Yeah, without a
But
doubt.
then when you come,
I'm not a fan of Sean
then
Ray, but he was a great bodybuilder, great poser. I'm going to give him that much.
right. But then you have when you look at posing now, you look at what I call um, dynamic posing or energetic posing, as opposed to something a little more classic. Sean Ray would fall in that classic group. Vince Taylor would be in the dynamic group. So, Sean Ray, he had the smooth move, boom, boom. It was very smooth from start to finish. He did not miss a beat. But when you had a guy like Vince Taylor that brought a different entertainment factor, you did not know what to look for, and it was more exciting and had you on your toes, start to finish. You didn't know what he was bringing. That was a different level of posing. And from then, you had Darren Charles, another outstanding poser.
Yeah.
You would have, and that era of posing. Oh, you know what? If we go back to the 80s, Haney was not a bad poser. He was not. You would not consider him a great poser, but he was a very good poser. You had Lee Labrada.
Yeah.
Lee Labrada,
Yes.
everybody knew was a masterful poser. Hit everything on cue. Rich Gaspari, who was not a great poser, but he posed for his physique and it was very good. Mike Christian, Barry DeMay. You could go down 10, 15 guys in the 80s and early 90s coming into the level of when Flex Wheeler started coming in, Chris Cormier started coming in, Kevin Lavroni started coming in. All these guys posed. But if you want to go through all of these great posers and you want to go for the best of the best, these are the ones I'm talking about, like the Vince Taylor, like Chris Cormier, and then you would fast forward into Kai Green. Now, I have a problem with Kai Green, though. For me, Kai Green is a little much. If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
He is a great poser, but his posing becomes a dance routine. So is it dance routine or is it bodybuilding posing? But don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything from him because whatever he does shows his muscles, but it becomes a bit much for me.
Well, I remember watching.
So if I had to name the top 5 best posers, he will be in the top 5, but he will not be number 1.
I remember watching him as an amateur, Kai Green. Even as an amateur, he was a little extravagant, but at least he he hit more poses as an amateur.
Right.
He got more extravagant, exotic. I'm trying to think of a good word to use as he progressed as a pro. You know, a little footnote about you mentioning Kevin Levrone,
Mm.
one of the greatest posers. You would think that the routines that he did would be choreographed, but I was listening to him recently in the interview. He said that his routines weren't choreographed. He had the music set out that he wanted to do, let the music play, and he just let his body kind of react to the music without a preset routine,
I saw
which
that interview.
I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, but you know what? There were a few guys out there like that, that could like feel the music and go with it. For the most part, Vince Taylor did admit to some of that, but he choreographed a lot of his stuff. But sometimes he said, like one time he said they messed up his tape, and he just had to go with the music, and he still had great posing. So now and even Dorian Yates, who was not a great poser, but like Rich Gaspari, he posed for his physique, and he took
Yeah.
time to develop his posing routine. But the guys today, they don't do that. You have very few guys that do that today. Most guys just want to come, hit 5, 6, 7 mandatory poses, walk back and forth on stage, and jump up and down like a clown. They'll pull a quick dance move, but there's no real substance to their posing.
No,
So
there's not.
if I had to pick the greatest posers, it would be very difficult because you would have like at least 20 guys from the 80s, at least 10 guys from the 90s, and maybe 2 guys after that.
Well, I think an exception to that, what you just said, would be Cedric McMillan. He poses
Yes,
old school, what we call old school.
yes. And he'd be one of the 2.
Yeah,
He'd be one of the 2 I'd call after 2000. But no. I mean, there's more than that, but there are very few guys that really put the time, effort, and emphasis into their posing routines. And that's sad, which leads to the next part of our topic. How much should you score posing? Because to me, if you score posing more, so you let them know that it's very critical, this posing routine, now the guys have to work on it. And I did watch RX Muscle when they were talking about their posing and everything with Milo Sarchev. And I agree with a lot of what they said because we're old school guys. We come from the days where we would get call out after call out after call out after call out. And also we'd have to do our posing routines. Now today there's no call outs. They don't really judge your posing routines. There's no points awarded in most shows. So, I mean, and rightfully so. If I was one of these guys today, why put emphasis in that? I'll hit 4 or 5 shots, boom, 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 rah, 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 and walk off stage.
well, the problem is
Why
how
would
much.
I put, you know?
I mean, yeah, definitely posing should be a factor in judging, but how much of a factor are we talking about? Let's go back to I think it was 2016 when Ty Green came in first in the Arnold Classic. Cedric McMillan came in second, and in the interview when Arnold interviewed Kai at the end, Arnold's own words were, "Well, Cedric had a better physique, but you took it in the posing round."
Posing round.
What it comes down to is a bodybuilding competition. Yeah, posing should be a factor, but a bodybuilding competition, you're judging the best body on stage. When it comes to Mr. Olympia, the winner of Mr. Olympia is judged the best bodybuilder in the whole world. You look at it, that comes
Right.
down to the physique. So, where do you draw the line, and how much a posing routine should be scored? I
Okay.
personally think Cedric McMillan was robbed. He was absolutely robbed. And
Yes.
Kai has an interesting posing routine, but if you're scoring a posing routine, how can you dismiss Cedric McMillan? The guy is a beautiful
Right.
poser. So here, on his own words, he physique wise, Cedric beat him, and you cannot dismiss the beauty in his display in his posing routine. So where do you draw?
And,
Where do you draw the
you know what? I
line?
agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that. But here's where the discrepancy is going to happen going forward with everybody. Because one, you like who you like. One guy's a Cedric fan. One guy's a Kai fan. One guy's a Heath fan. You like who you like. Then there's the layer of, is the posing routine going to be 5%, 10%, 20% of the score? How much is it going to be? Now, another factor is with the symmetry round. Remember, they eliminated the symmetry round a few years ago, really counting it. So, as you know, if you look better than me in the prejudging, but as the prejudging goes on, you start to fade and I start to get better. And then in the night show, when it's time for the posing routine, I look better than you. And then when the top six, and my posing routine's better than yours, and then when the top six face off, I'm clearly looking better than you by now. Who wins the show?
Well, that's why they read.
So
They rejudge. They
It's gonna be
rejudge
a
you. They put you in through the comparisons again. And if it's a 1 day show in the evening, they'll put you through the comparisons. If it's a 2 day show, the next day they're gonna put you through the comparisons again to see if somebody faded. But as far as you talk about the symmetry round, symmetry is still being judged when they're doing the quarter turns. What do you think they're looking at? They're assess when they're doing the quarter turns. They're assessing your symmetry.
Agreed. But back in the day, there was actually a symmetry round where they would put you through the quarter turns. Like, okay, you have the first 5, 6 guys, quarter turns. Then they would say, okay, the next 6 guys, next 6 or whatever, and then they would mix them up and make that a complete round and score that round completely and solely in and of itself. Then they would have the muscularity round and do it the same way and score that in and of itself completely and separately. But now they kind of mixed it in. And I understand why, because there's more divisions, there's more people, there's more. So,
well, that's the big problem. There's too many divisions. Let me tell you something. When I was still competing, I competed from 2004 to 2008. We had the bodybuilding, the different divisions, the novice, the open men's with the different weight classes, and we had the masters, we had the women's bodybuilding, and women's the beginning of women's figure also, and fitness. And the shows would start at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they would have finished till 11:30 at night. I thought that was exhausting. And now when you have the addition of physique, now there's classic physique. You got the bikini also, and you got more and more competitors. It's a problem. You don't have they don't have the time to take to really assess the athletes.
Now here's what's a little funny. When you said when you competed, even though you're a little older than me, I competed from 90 to 2000.
You're a little bit.
So I started what it was back then. It was just men's now it was teenage A, teenage B.
Oh yeah, I forgot the teenage division. I forgot to add that one in also. Okay.
Teenage A, teenage B, open, and maybe in some shows masters. And that was it. And if there were women in the shows, it was women's bodybuilding. They would do teenage A, teenage B for the women, and women's open bodybuilding, and maybe a woman's masters. And that's all we had. So yeah, I could understand what's going on today with today's shows. So maybe you split the shows up. Remember, we had to talk about the classic physique, how dominant it would become. Maybe you have a day with just classic physique on one weekend. Maybe you have a day with the open on one weekend.
You
And
know,
if the classic physique is the major and the open men is the major, then you have the other female shows and other men's shows to back it up.
I
And I
got.
know a lot of people are going to get mad at me with this. Get rid of men's physique.
Well, let me tell you something. That's what I want to
Oh,
say this
I'm feeling right
quickly.
now. I'm getting shot. Oh,
I
oh,
just,
the
I just,
rocks
I
are
just,
coming
I
through
just,
my
I just want to
window.
say this quickly because it's actually a good topic for another video.
Yes,
Uh, as far as the women's division, uh,
right.
I don't think we need both figure and bikini together. They could be merged. They really could be
Right.
merged. If you look at the physiques on the women from figure to bikini, there's not a lot of there's not much of a difference. They could be merged. Fitness is a whole different ball game. That's really I find that exciting to watch the women's fitness. I agree
Yes.
with you with the men's physique. First off, one reason why they should get rid of it. If you look at the men's physique 5 years ago and look at it now, the look at it, the look has changed dramatically.
Yes.
You can't see their legs because of the board shorts, but if they have legs, they have the type of upper bodies that can actually compete in classic physique.
Yes. Yes. But by the way, these are my calves. Let me show you. These are my calves right here in men's physique. Right here.
Some of them actually have legs. You'd be surprised. There's some of them
Yeah,
do
no,
have
some of them
legs.
do. Some of them do. I'll give them that. Some of them do. But
Yeah.
but getting back to the matter of with the posing, let's get back on topic. With the posing, I think there should be more. Well, let's figure out what the point scale is going to be for posing. But there has to be a quantifiable. It has to be measured in that. Look, you need to put emphasis on your posing. If not, well, the next guy, like what happened with Kai and what happened with Cedric, unfortunately, that might happen to you. It might cause them to work harder on their posing.
I
If you
mean,
put a certain amount of points on the posing routine.
if
That's the
if
first
one
thing that has to happen.
if one of the guys, if one of the competitors in the comparisons gets straight ones across the board, and the other guy is a nice and let's say that person is not the best poser, and somebody comes along as an excellent poser. This guy got straight ones across the board. He shouldn't lose the competition because his posing
Okay.
wasn't up to par.
Okay. I mean, yes, I can see that argument as well. All right. Here's a fix for that. You score the posing, but at the end of the show, you give 10 or 20,000 to the best poser.
You can give a prize money. I think they used to do it in some shows. You know, I'll
Yes,
tell
they
you,
used to way back in the day.
you can use posing as when things are very, very close, or all other things being equal. You can use posing as deciding factor.
Tiebreaker.
I'll give you an example. I used to do compete in bare knuckle full contact karate matches, and it was called knockdown competition, and we had three weight classes. It was only light,
Right.
middle, and heavyweight. Now, before of course, we get weighed in, because you have to make your weight class. But before you fought, you also had to be able to break a minimum of 3 boards, 3 1-inch pine boards. But you always try to break as many as you can. Because what would happen is,
Right.
at the end of the fight, we go at it for 3-4 minutes, and if there's no decision amongst the judges, they can't come to a unanimous decision, we fight again another round. If they can't come to a decision, we'll fight again for a 3rd round. And if the head judge, the center judge, who's acting as a referee, if he can't make the deciding call on which way to go, what they would do is they would go to the weight, and the lighter weight competitor would get the nod, and they both weighed in the same. They would go to whoever broke the most amount of boards, and if everything came out
Right.
equal, too bad. You have to go fight some more. But my point is, judging should be scored. It should be a factor. It shouldn't be the major factor in a competition. Like the scenario I just gave you when I used to compete fighting. It could be used as, the lack of a better term, tiebreaker. If all
Right.
things being very, very close, you'll give the nod to the person who has the better presentation. But I mean, that's also very subjective. Also, they when Kai Green took out Cedric McMillan for first place, he won because of his posing routine. And if you compare, I think if you compare Kai's routine to Cedric's routine, I think Cedric's routine was much more appealing.
And like I said, there's a classic and dynamic. Whereas Cedric's was more classic, Kai's was more dynamic. I always think Kai's was over the top. But let me throw this one out there. Remember when you talked about Kevin Levrone not practicing? You know who always improvising their routines too? King Kamali.
Yeah.
King Kamali
Okay.
never practiced. He'd listen to the music a couple times before he went on stage and then just did his thing. So, okay, let me ask you this. Just to throw out there, top 5. Who would be your top 5 best posers of all time? If you had to choose them.
In no particular order, I'm just going to pull out 5 names.
Right.
Like I mentioned, from the 70s, Ed Corney. I can
Right.
never get tired of watching him. Sean Ray would be another one. I personally don't like Sean Ray. I don't like him at all. But
Who
he's
does?
great bodybuilder, great poser. Kevin Levrone, great poser.
Okay.
Lee Labrada and Flex Wheeler.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. If I had to throw my top 5 out there, it would be Ed Corney, Vince Taylor, Darren Charles, Lee Labrada, and it would be a fight off the top of my head, probably between Flex and Kamali to get into that 5th spot.
But it's tough to pick 5 because I mean I really
Yes,
really love to watch Cedric McMillan pose.
Yes.
I didn't
But
put him.
do I think Cedric McMillan is better than the 5 guys I picked? No, I don't.
I didn't.
But he's up there. He's up there.
I didn't name him in my 5, but you named him Vince Taylor. I love to watch Vince Taylor also, but so it's really hard to pick a top 5.
Yeah.
So to conclude this video, I think we both agree that posing should have a factor in the scoring. Do we
Yes.
agree on that?
Yes, we can.
But ultimately, it shouldn't be the determining factor. Do we agree on that?
Unless
it's close.
Unless both guys are absolutely equal and you can't decide, go to the poll.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that, without a doubt.
Right.
Okay, let's wrap this one up. This is Michael
Yes, sir.
Diamond and Ricky T. Anthony from Muscle Central signing out. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you click like, share, and by all means subscribe. You can follow Muscle Central on Facebook and Twitter. If you go to the description box at the bottom of below the video, you'll find the links to Muscle Central Facebook, Muscle Central Twitter. Once again, Michael Diamond, Ricky T. Anthony, Muscle Central, signing out. Take care, Ricky.
You too, man.